Okay, so let's start with Venkatesh from the private sector. What were the highlights of what he said? All right, I'm just going to say private sector. Okay, so he talks about okay, the process of development, which I assume was something that you guys are able to follow quite easily because we have talked about the process, right? So specifically, what are the kinds of challenges that he highlighted? Okay, one by so Pawan. Okay, what about investment? Okay, so challenges are okay, project valuation and investment, right? So how do I find money for the project? Is it the right amount? Okay, what about duration? Why? So we're talking specifically about challenges, right? So valuation is a challenge, investment is a challenge. What is the challenge regarding duration? Okay, so duration and interest. So projects are often delayed, and therefore there are interest costs that need to be borne. Okay, Jayakishan. Okay, and interest costs. There's a decrease in possible revenue because the duration of the project is now. I mean, the duration of construction has increased, so your concession duration is lower, and as a result of which you make lesser money than expected because you collect lesser revenue. Okay, fantastic. All right, yeah, Varun. Okay. Right. So how do you determine project value, and what drives project value and project revenue?
Project cost is determined by various components like the overhead cost, the cost for the land acquisition is the building, and then consultant,
Right.
consultant fees, project management cost.
Yeah. So there's land acquisition, consultants, and then there is the actual materials, all of that. Okay, so what are some risks here? Yeah, correct. So finding what the land acquisition cost is itself is very time consuming, it's disagreeable, people disagree. If I own the land, I always think it's worth more. If you want to buy the land, it's worth less. It becomes very difficult. Then it's a drawn out process. If it's a drawn out process, then the construction time increases, which means the amount of time I have left with me in a PPP to collect revenues decreases. So overall, my project economics suffers, right? So these are some of the key risks with regards to costs. Okay, what are the other challenges he spoke about in infrastructure? Cost estimation and forecasting, costs or revenues? Okay. All right, so cost of materials, how do you forecast? Okay. Huh.
How to forecast the revenue and what are the various methods we can use, but still it's not the exact revenue.
Correct. So how do you forecast revenues? Because revenues very often is at risk, no? So based on the amount of traffic on the road, and traffic on the road can change for a variety of reasons. Sometimes people do, so for instance, right now, traffic on the road is expected to be quite high because this period of time in India between Dussehra and Diwali, right, and plus or minus some days on either side is essentially a holiday time. So a lot of people travel. There's also a lot of movement of goods because lots of people are ordering, many things, right? So if you want to buy clothes for Diwali, then clearly somebody is supplying them. So if I start looking at traffic today and I take this as indicative of what my traffic is likely to be, then I might be very unpleasantly surprised because in April or May, the traffic might be far lesser, right? And therefore, it becomes very difficult to understand how to evaluate traffic. There are seasonal variations, there are annual variations. Yes, there is some growth, but traffic is also sensitive to many other things. Maybe there might be a competing route that is opened because of which people might go that. So we saw in the Vadodara Halol toll road case, it could be competing route. It could be, their check post is much more lenient with regards to overloaded trucks. So let me go there. All kinds of, things that affect traffic revenue. So forecasting these is very, very difficult, right? It's just, it's very difficult to get a good quantitative model to really accurately forecast these. Of course, if it's a small 1%, 2% deviation here or there, nobody is really bothered, but sometimes these deviations can be very large. There can be trucker strikes, Recently, about a couple of years ago, we had this demonetization, or about a year ago, we had this whole demonetization incident. And the problem, one of the things which happened with demonetization is there was a notice that came out that said, therefore, people need to be able to pass through the toll plazas for free, right, for a period of time, because how are they going to pay? There's no money, there's no cash in the system, right? In return, the private operator will probably be given a extra extension to their contractual period, right? So whereas it should have finished on March 31st of 2026, right? You might now be asked to go until April 7th or April 10th or whatever. But are the revenues that I lost now necessarily going to be compensated by an extra week of revenue 7 years down the line or 8 years down the line? I don't know, right? So all kinds of issues with forecasting and revenues. All right, what else? So those are, yeah, so other costs that are in, right? Yeah, Parthik. Is lost tender analysis. Tell me what lost tender analysis is. Yeah. Yeah, so this is a very important issue, right? So what do I bid and how much do I bid? And I want to bid an amount that makes me profitable, but also makes me better than everyone else. And sometimes these two are trade-offs, right? If I want to be profitable, sometimes the amount I bid is much higher. Right, and therefore I become non-competitive. If I become competitive, then the amount that I make might become lower, right? So how do I, and particularly if people are gaming the system, right? If people are trying to, for whatever reason, artificially bid low, then how do I actually work through these systems? So this is again a big risk, and what happens is sometimes you have people deciding that they will not bid on projects, which is a loss to the project developer, right? Because if I were the government of Orissa and I want to build a road, I would rather have the Punch Lloyds, the L&Ts and the who's who come in and compete to build the road, right? I don't want them going away on some pretext because the competition is too rough or not fair enough, etc. And then me being stuck with some person who might, I want the contract to, but do a low quality job, right? So this also then affects quality, okay? So good. So he's talked about a bunch of, risks that the private sector faces when developing infrastructure, okay? Now let's go back one more class. Okay, and then talk about the public sector's views. Okay, what is the public sector doing, right, to help the private sector here develop these kinds of projects? Should the public sector be doing anything to help the private sector is itself a question, right? Because the private sector is making a profit at the end of the day. If you want to make a profit, you take some amount of risk. So you take these risks and build, right? So the first question is, should the private sector step in at all, right? And if so, what should it do? What should it do is somewhat clear, right? So what should it do is clear from all of this, right? So what should it do is in terms of, can I help with land acquisition? Can I somehow regulate the cost of materials? Can I ensure that tender competition is fair and people are not unfairly undercutting one another, so I have a good quality of competition? So we have, from this list, we can infer things that private sector should be doing with regards to land, with regards to materials, with regards to procurement, right? But what did we hear from the public sector? What is it that they are thinking about? Okay, so they also are aware of the land acquisition issues, right? And it's certainly something that they are trying to work on, right? How do I get a fast and fair land acquisition projects for public, land acquisition for infrastructure projects, right? Fast, fair and fast. Okay, so that's something that they are also aware of. Okay, so acquire land early is something that they should be doing. Okay, and again this is logical, right? If I acquire land ahead of time and I already have my land acquired, the project can proceed smoothly. But acquiring land is also a politically difficult process. I don't want to acquire it in such a way that I lose the next elections, and therefore in some ways it would be better for me if the private sector is the one that acquired the land. So the responsibility less on the private sector and not on me. And so there are some dynamics surrounding that. But this is obviously a very logical and something that people in infrastructure would really like to see. Okay, fantastic. Okay, what else is the government doing? Yeah, so correct. So first you want again a fair and fast judicial system. Okay, I'm not sure that the experience. So the thing with China is there's pros and cons, right, to the way we think about China. So I visited China just before the Beijing Olympics, and it's just amazing what they've been able to construct in the amount of time. And it's because of exactly as you said. If the government decides to construct, then there is no way you can oppose them, right? So you take whatever compensation you get, if at all, and you just move, okay, which obviously tends to favor fast infrastructure development. That's why they've been able to build the cities they've built and the highways they've built. Question is, what is the social cost of doing this, right? How fair is it? How democratic is it? Is the other side of the coin. So those who enjoy that infrastructure are obviously very happy with it, right? So those who fly into China, see the wonderful airports, take the wonderful roads to the hotels, etc. But of course, there were millions of people who have been displaced, whether it's the Three Gorges Dam or whatever development, who probably have a very different story to tell, right? Many of their livelihoods were lost. Who knows whether they've been able to come back to that level of economic development again after being displaced. So I think that's sort of the model. But again, the point is, can we have a fair and fast judicial sort of system? And again, the government is working on these kinds of things. For instance, there is a new arbitration act. So very often what happens is you don't go to the courts first, right? So you go to, first you might have a little bit of a mediation, right? You try to resolve it right then and there. Otherwise you go to arbitration. Arbitration is sort of it's like the judicial process, but it's not the court. It's an arbitration panel of experts that we all select, and we agree that whatever these guys have said will be something that we will accept, right? So essentially we are saying the problem with the courts is we have so few courts in the country that if all of us take our problems to the court will be overloaded, right? If your case is filed today, it might take months before it comes up because everyone in the country is going to those same courts. So why can't we set up a parallel system of arbitration? Let's get qualified people, in many cases experienced people from the industry who have retired, people like Mr. Venkatesh himself, or experienced retired judges, whatever. Put them on this tribunal, let them listen to the arguments and let them rule. Okay, and let us assume that those rules will be binding. So I don't have to trouble the court unless there are exceptional circumstances where I sort of say I need to appeal. Okay, so but the Indian Arbitration Act at one point was a very long-winded act, right? It took a long time for arbitration to happen, for appeals to come in, for a resolution to come in, and then people would then take it to the courts, etc., and be never-ending. Right, so there have been amendments to the Arbitration Act, and I can't remember them off the top of my head, but I think now it says something like you've got to close the process within 18 months of starting it, right? So we start sort of fighting a claim against you, you've got to close it within about 18 months. If the arbitration panel rules in your favor, right, then while the other person can still appeal against what's called a bank guarantee, you can actually get 75% of the money that you had asked for. Right, so let's say you and I are disputing. I'm saying you need to pay me 100 crores, right? Because you made some changes in the scope of work or whatever it is, and I had to bear that extra cost. And you're saying no, whatever. We go to arbitration, and arbitration says no, I'm right. Right? I did do 100 crores of work. Okay, but you say, look, I'm not going to stop here. I want to appeal this to the court, right? Because I don't think this was fair. So now under the current arbitration provisions, right? What happens is, fine, you go ahead and appeal. But 75% of the money is given to me. If later on it turns out that I was actually wrong, right, and I bribed the arbitration panel or whatever, and the courts actually rule against you, I'll pay you that money back, right? But at least I have that money now, and I don't have to wait, right? In most cases, the arbitration panel, if you select them properly, are going to give you a fair ruling, right? So instead of me having to wait years more for that money to come by, I can now bring that money back into the system quickly, start working, let this project take its course, right? If it takes 3 more years for the High Court to give a decision, that's fine, because 75% of the money I already have, I've already reinvested it. So again, the judicial process is undergoing a lot of improvement, okay? Of course, I think we have a long way to go, but these things are happening, right? So I think what came out of Mr. Krishnan's discussion the other day was that the public sector is not unaware of all of this. Right? The public sector is aware of a lot of these things, and they've been trying to take measures against it. There are constraints that they have in terms of the number of people they have, the rules that they need to follow, etc. So on the face of it, it looks like there is, right, it looks like there is some amount of consonance between these two, right? The private sector has some constraints. You're not acquiring land, right? You know, the revenue forecasts are, you know, very difficult to predict. Material forecasts are very difficult. Prices keep changing, etc. And the public sector says we're working on some of those. We're working on better land acquisition. We're working on a better judicial process, right, etc., etc., right? But the fact of the matter is today, right, it's the things still are not very smooth from a public sector perspective. It still takes a long time from private sector perspective. It still takes a long time to get approvals. Projects take a long time to get off the ground. There are time overruns. There are cost overruns, right? If you take, you know, metros, for instance, there are 20-30% extra costs that are incurred for a variety of reasons. It took too long to acquire land. You know, new things came up in the middle of the project that I had to do, and therefore, while I had budgeted X, the actual amount was X plus something else, but I'd only taken a loan for X, and therefore I have to scramble and find money elsewhere. So while it seems that the public and private sector are theoretically on the same page, practically what the private sector needs is not necessarily being met at the moment, okay? So the question is this destined to continue to remain in dialogue, where the public sector continues to say, yes, I'll keep improving myself, but you never ever meet the goal, or can the public sector actually become dynamic enough to very quickly turn around and match the requirements of the private sector so that the infrastructure project can actually come be done faster. So this is the basic question, right? Is this just one of those things where, you know, government, whichever way you look at it, is going to slow things down, right? Or can government actually transform itself, right? So this is where I want to play you the video. We'll watch this video, right? We'll talk about it. Okay, this is a video. This was produced by the Asian Development Bank, a series of videos and a DVD. The DVD unfortunately seems to have been demagnetized. It's not running anymore, but luckily it's on YouTube. So we'll watch the same version on YouTube. And it's about water connection in a city called, water supply provision in a city called Phnom Penh, which is in Cambodia, right? So, all right. So let's just watch the video and then we'll talk about it. It's about 20 minutes.
In every drop of water เราไม่สามารถที่จะหาน้ำสะอาดที่ดื่มได้
We'd like to tell you some stories. Stories about water.
Children died from drinking.
'Phnom Penh city grow really very fast, and many road and drainage system was really improved along the last few years.
When Exon Chan was appointed director of the Phnom Penh Water Supply Authority in 1993, he faced a seemingly impossible task: provide clean water to a city still recovering from long years of war and civil strife. Like much of the city, the water supply system was in ruins. Tens of thousands of people banished to the countryside by the Khmer Rouge flooded back to the city, filling derelict buildings and squatting on any available land.
Before 1970, they have not many people inside the city, just only around 500,000 people. But right now, I think that we have around 1 million people. That's why the infrastructure of the city are really challenging. The city hall. We come back to Phnom Penh after the Khmer Rouge regime by the year of 1979. And after that, we know that everything was destroyed. Phnom Penh water supply at the time was operated by the authority of the Khmer Rouge to supply part of the city of Phnom Penh, but not the whole city. The treatment plant also partly operated, no maintenance. The distribution was completely abandoned. We have no technicians. All the engineer was killed. That was the situation we had to run the water supply at the time. over 70% of water was lost because the distribution is too old, many leaks, what they call the physical loss. But then in the meantime, the people just make an illegal connection. Many of illegal connection like that. From the empty city to the 700,000 people city, it takes only around 3 months. The most important thing is that the pipe was laid under the ground. We need the document. We need all the designs, the drawing, everything, but then completely destroyed. We have nothing but the human resource.
The core management team gathered by Exxon Chan in 1993 remains with him to this day, and they've almost completely restored Phnom Penh's central city water services, making it one of Asia's most effective water utilities.
My first reform here in terms of human resource, I think we have to try to bring the qualified young staff, and I really want to work. Something I want them to do like this. They say no, cannot be like that. Could not be done like that. Right? So we are really very frank together. We work all together as a family, as a team. We can say we have really a strong teamwork.
Technical Director Long Naro was trained in the former East Germany and played a key role in restoring the Phnom Penh water supply. He frequently supervises several large-scale projects at the same time. This is the renovated water treatment plant at Troy Chang Hua on the banks of the Mekong River.
My boss knows what I should do. If I mistake, he call me. In Western country, if you see the mistake, you will call the guy to tell this is mistake. But Cambodian sometimes no. If you see mistake, sometimes you cannot tell.
Troy Chang Hua was Phnom Penh's first water treatment plant, built by the French in 1895. It was decommissioned in 1983 in a state of disrepair. Based on the original architecture, it's been restored to its former glory, making it a showpiece for the utility. Bringing the plant back online will greatly improve water services to the whole community. Sim King Lin was a university lecturer and has been on Exxon Chan's team from the beginning. Responsible for seeking new customers, he works with poor communities to find affordable ways they can connect to the network. Squatters have occupied this former Buddhist complex for the past 10 years.
installment payment.
After consultations, the community agrees to pay by installments to connect to the city's supply. For Exxon Chan, reaching these communities has been his goal from the beginning. A decade ago, the utilities customers were mostly the rich.
Around 20% of the people who get already the water with the low cost from our system. But then the other 80%, the poor people, they still don't get any water from the water supply. They have to buy the water from different sources, where the price is very high. Excuse me.
Village 21 lies on the far edge of Byong Kak Lake, directly opposite Exxon Chan's office. Previously a water park in Phnom Penh's colonial days, it's now home to an extensive squatter community. Village 21 has been negotiating with the Water Supply Authority for a legal connection. Another job for Sim Keen Lin. The problem here is the location. Excavating to lay pipes would endanger the railway track.
បានឲ្យយើងដាក់កំពង់ទៅតាមផ្លូវនេះអត់បានទេលោកឃើញស្រាប់ហើយនេះផ្លូវវាជាអៀតប៉ះគ្រឹះសំខាន់មួយគ្រឹះអតិថិជនដែលគេថាក្នុងមួយថ្ងៃគេមាន2ដង3ដង4ដង5ដងអញ្ចឹងទៅបើទៀតភ្លើងដឹកសិតអាស៊ីទាំងធំដែលមាន30តោនក្នុងមួយដែលមានហើយដូច្នេះបានយើងសម្រេចថាឥឡូវនេះខាងសមាគមនេះឯកភាពគេថាដាក់តែនេះ
In the circumstances, connecting individual households in Village 21 is not possible, but a nearby water point will be installed to provide clean water for the community. Phnom Penh Water Supply continues to renew pipes which often date back to colonial times. When they began, they had no real idea of who their customers were.
We tried to see the real situation of the water supply at the time. We have 24,000 customers. Only around 40% of those customers pay the water bill. We have to make the customer survey because I know that many people, they have the connections, they get the water, but they never have any bill from the water supply. And in the meantime, they have also many people never get any water, but they still receive the bill from the water supply.
You see the water, the color of the water. It's very bad. Most of these old pipes have plenty of illegal connection.
The water tariff at the time is also very, very low. The income of the water supply at the time, just enough to cover 50% of the operation cost. We finished house by house, 1 year. Finally, we found that it have around 30,000 customers instead of 24,000. And then the 30,000 customers are completely real customers. How to force them to pay? We have to send the people to have discussion, negotiation with our customers to know that the water cannot be free. In any society, they have some people are not really willing to pay. Some of the rich people, because they used to have strong power, they used to be something higher than the other people, just don't want to pay. The other people will complain to me, why I need to pay you? And in the meantime, the VIP people never pay. I go around from house to house, I knock their door, I tell them, the water cannot be free. You use more, you have to pay. When you install the water meter, they will affect the customer's mind. The consumption is measured. So for sure, you have to pay.
We have a benchmark, for example, 10%. So if next period, we found that this meter compared to the domestic meter is higher than 10%, it means something wrong inside the system.
The second group is quite difficult. The soldiers, military. And you may know that 93, 94, 95, the city is still not secure. Every people have the gun. It's also very difficult. They don't want to pay, okay, we bring our forces and then disconnect them. I think that it takes only around half a year. The collection ratio start from 70, 80, 90, and right now we can say 99% we collected the bill. After 3 years, we are able to generate the revenue and then able to run the facilities.
The authority now operates on the basis of full cost recovery. That means covering not only operation and maintenance costs, but also investments to improve and expand the network and bring affordable water to everyone, especially the poor. The scale of this task is shown clearly here in a rundown tenement complex known simply as The Building. Once a modern feature of the city, it's now little more than a vertical slum. Recently, the building was connected to the city water supply, Now it has become the centre of an informal network of water vendors who resell city water at higher prices to the squatter community which has grown up behind it. The water utility cannot access this crowded maze of makeshift dwellings to provide service.
នេះខ្ញុំវ៉ាតែធំលក់អីគេមួយធំក្នុងមួយធំនោះ1000ហើយតបានដល់ប្រហែល5 6ទេហើយឥឡូវហើយតចេញទៅក្រៅតិចតួចហ្នឹង
នេះគឺជាអាងស្តុកទឹករបស់អ្នកលក់ទឹកបាទគាត់បានតបណ្ដាញរដ្ឋនៅខាងក្រោមហើយគាត់បានប្រើម៉ូទ័របូមរុញបូមឡើងមកចូលអាងស្តុកនេះរួចហើយគាត់ទើបគាត់តម្លាក់ចែកចាយទៅវិញទៅចំពោះប្រជាពលរដ្ឋដែលនៅក្នុងអាគារនេះមកផ្នែកខាងនេះបាទអញ្ចឹងគឺនៅមកដូច building ទាំងអស់នេះគឺមានអ្នកលក់ទឹក4នាក់
Phnom Penh water supply have reached a milestone. 70% of the city has been connected with 24-hour water supply, and now service is being expanded to the suburbs. In 1993, the utility was losing 70% of its water due to leaking pipes and illegal connections. Losses have been reduced to a mere 22%, a figure matched by few utilities in the region. The next major task is to take a distribution pipe across the Tonle Sap.
We are mostly completed the area. Now we supply the water through the other area. Since 1973, they have no water on the other side. They sell us. We pump the water, untreated, and sell to the people where they are 5 times higher than our treated water.
We don't have drawing related to underground system, so we cannot bring the machinery to lay the pipe at this location. We need to dig by hand. But after we cross the bridge, we can lay the pipe by machinery.
I think that in Cambodia, no organization they try to do this kind of job themselves. They have to look for overseas company to do it. So I think, okay, you have confidence to do yourself now. So he said, okay, we try to do ourselves. I think that the outside contractor, they will cost us at least around $500,000 here. But he just say that we need less than $50,000. When we do ourselves, our people make experience. They learn from what they did.
Every year, Phnom Penh's population swells to more than twice its size as Cambodians flock to the Moon and Water Festival on the Tonle Sap. The festival marks a unique event, the reversing of the direction of the river current due to backflow from the Mekong River late in the rainy season.
All right, okay. They come really very far from the countryside and they enjoy for 5 days.
The utility supplies water to boat crews camped along the river, and utility staff also sponsor 2 boat teams in the competition.
This boat, they are far away from the city, around 150 kilometers. So you have to rent a big boat to carry your boat from your countryside to this place.
Last year we need to transport the water by car, by truck. But this year, after the completion of the network, they are able to supply water direct to the boat team.
At the temple community, it's a big day for other reasons. Negotiations are complete, and today is Connection Day.
We tried about water 2 years, more than 2 years. It's long time. Everybody, every different house sell money. My house sell money. My neighbor sell the money. Little bit every day. We buy the government water only 350 real. If we buy from private company, it's 3,000 real. Very expensive for our people live in this area because we are all poor people.
ដើម្បីមកទទួលលុយផ្ទាល់នៅកន្លែងនេះទៀតនៅក្រោមដើម
Now we can have this water. We very happy.
អូយពូសាក់សំអត់
អត់តោះហ្មងគ្មានទេចាស័កសមហើយគ្មានវាមិនខ្លាយដូចលើកមុនហ្នឹងពូទឹកគេមកគី3000ហ្នឹងចាវាគុណភាពទឹកវាខ្លាំងពូប្រើអាចចាស្អាតទៀតចា
There are also reasons to celebrate in the Phnom Penh water supply camp. The team have reached a milestone in their effort to supply water across the river 1 month ahead of schedule.
I think that they are also very proud because we are working for the country. We're working for the country. We suffer too much from the Khmer Rouge regime. We come back to the city, really very poor together. The city look like you see, the killing field, right? Really nothing. I think that our people really try to work hard for the country because they remember the past time. Maybe the past bring them some of the courage, some of the effort to work for the country. But I don't want to be the past repeated again. Maybe they are lucky. Sometimes personally, they are lucky. All our friends, all our colleagues here, they work really very friendly and very frankly together. The Phnom Penh Water Supply Authority, they are facing now 2 challenges, and sanitation will be the featured challenge of the Phnom Penh Water Supply. 5 years ago, we went to tell them that, okay, we convinced them you have to pay for the water what you use. But now the new challenge is that we have to go to tell them again, you have to pay for what you waste. I think that really the big challenge, this sanitation. Yeah, the second challenge, to have 100% cover the whole city, including the suburb, by the year of 2005. We have some common that only the private sector can run the authority efficiently. The public cannot do that. For me, I think that it's not the matter of public or private. That is only the matter of process, the matter of leadership, the matter of policy. We are autonomous. That is a policy of the government. But if we are public, like the water supply of Phnom Penh, the profit made by us will be the profit of the country. We want to work for our nation. We want to work for our country. We are proud to be that. And now the last day, they try to win again. That I can be the number 1.
All right, so what did you guys think? Is that an example of successful infrastructure project implementation or unsuccessful project implementation? Okay, so Phnom Penh water supply is successful and was implemented by a public authority, a government authority, right? Phnom Penh water supply, all right. So what are they able to do, or how are they able to do what are they able to do? What are sort of, in your ways, key characteristics that define Exxon Chan's team in the Phnom Penh water supply? So they stopped illegal connections, fine, okay. How did they stop illegal connections? We all want to stop illegal connections, right? By? Okay, so they stopped illegal connections. How did they do? They started metering. Okay, why are they able to do metering? We can do the same thing, right? Meters are not new. Okay, so one is okay. So then there's good interaction with the public is key. Interaction with the public is key. Okay, so they have good interaction with the public. They Yeah, so door to door, all of that, right? Where have we seen that before? Alandur, right? So yeah, so it seems to sort of work, right? If you actually go and meet people, then they're willing to sort of have a dialogue with you and come to a solution on, okay, I've got my train tracks here, you can't put in the water supply, you know, can you find me some other place to put water supply? Can we have a public connection, private connection, right? So that's great. So they really, seem to have spent some effort in, that consultation, and they had that university professor person who I don't think was an engineer at all, right? But they had people who are really strong at working with communities on their team. So it's not just it's an engineering service, but it's not just engineers, right? It's people who understand society, all right? Okay, so this is fine. But I want to go back and I want to sort of talk about, yeah, metering was good. They stopped illegal connections, they metered all of that. Why haven't we been able to meter, right? How are they able to meter? It's that simple, we should all meter, yeah. Okay, good. So somewhere here, and it's related to it, and so there is this issue of leadership, right? And he mentions it also right at the end. Okay, so I think leadership is obviously very, very important. So this person clearly, Ek Son Chan, comes across as a strong leader. He is articulate. He seems to have a presence. You know, people seem to be happy to work with him. He also has very interesting leadership traits. Clearly, he is not a very autocratic leader. He explains, people are allowed to disagree, people are allowed to tell him that it can't be done the way he wants it to be done, etc. So certainly certain leadership traits that are very important to this organization, right? So I think that is, a very, very important characteristic. Okay, yeah. Which is again very, very important, right? So that was again very, very, so, and this is probably, equally or if not more important. So there's this notion of, ultimately metering, all of that comes down to political willingness, right? It's not technologically difficult at all. I mean, meters can be bought, meters can be put in, etc. But, when you come up with metering, there's no point just measuring what people are going to consume, right? The whole point of metering, you measure and you charge, right? And very often what will happen is once I charge, right, your water bills are more likely to go up. Now because you don't care about how much you consume quite a bit of water, right? The moment I start measuring, your water bills are likely to go up, right? And so it needs some political willingness to meter and bill, right, which are what metering plus billing, okay? A lot of people may not be able to do that because, you might not have the political willingness to risk incurring the displeasure of people. But here you have strong leadership coupled with autonomy. Right, essentially the government sort of says, look, you guys are autonomous, you guys need to pay for yourselves, okay, and if you want to take certain decisions to do that, as long as they are within some framework of the law, go ahead, right. So clearly every society has a framework where there are water tariffs, okay. Now the water tariffs might be very low, they might be fixed, etc. But here the idea was, say, look, if you want to charge tariffs according to, whatever the quantum of water used, etc., if you want to charge a certain rate because that's what helps you recover costs, go ahead and do that, right? So autonomy, I think, is a critical point coupled with leadership, right, are two, very important points in terms of why this authority was able to accomplish what it was able to accomplish, which seems to have been, Phnom Penh is, and when they started, is a far more difficult place to work in than any city in India, for instance, at the moment, right? So the Khmer Rouge has essentially indulged in large-scale genocide. Large portion of the population, the educated population, right, the engineers, the doctors, etc., were dead, okay, and you had, and even things like they'd even planted mines all over the place. You couldn't even walk on the street safely, right, without, fear of being blown up. So a very, very difficult environment. There's no economy, no industry really, right, so the paying capacity is low, so the starting conditions are terrible, right. So that environment, you have a group of obviously self-motivated people who are given the autonomy and are told, look, don't worry about what people will pay, etc. Your job is to run a water utility, connect water, connect poor people, figure out a way to recover costs, right? And you have a strong leader, right, who can actually take you around that path. And so with some of these relatively simple conditions, right, you see that there's actually a very successful story of infrastructure development, right? Quantity of water, quality of water, the kinds of demographic groups that get water, right, all of that. So they started off with customers randomly getting bills, etc., to actually getting to a point where they were doing 100% cost recovery and being able to pay for capital expansion, right? I want to sort of build a bridge, build a pipeline across the river to the other side. I don't need to go borrow money from anybody, right? The leadership is also, interesting in terms of saying, look, let's build it ourselves rather than getting other people to do it. Yeah. Good question. I believe they did, from what I've heard anecdotally, that they were able to sort of develop the system themselves, right? And again, there are some interesting anecdotes that Exxon Chan has shared in other forums, not there in this video, but he talks about the military, right? And he makes it look very simple. He sort of says, we cut the connection, they came back, right? But the actual story, I believe, was, he goes in and he opens, and the military, of course, are proud because they feel they're the ones who have delivered Cambodia from the Khmer rule, right? You should be eternally grateful to them. Everything should come for free kind of an attitude, right? So he goes, he opens the door. There's a, military, I don't know, major, general, whatever, with a gun, right, pointing straight at him. Okay, what would you do if you had a gun that was pointed straight at you? Step back, turn around, run, etc. So he did all of those things. And then he came back and he knocked on the same door. Okay. The fellow opens it with the same gun, but this time behind Exxon Chan is every single news channel, right? Taking a video of this fellow, entitled rich fellow with a gun, threatening the head of the water utility that he will not pay a bill of, I don't know, 500 riyals or 350 riyals or whatever, which is a trivial amount for someone of that stature, right? So if you suddenly find all the TV cameras in the world and you're, I assume, some sort of public person, right? So people probably recognize you if they saw your photograph in the newspaper, right? What are you going to do? Right? You pretend that this isn't a real gun in the first place. I said, oh, sorry, yeah, come in and have tea, right? How much money do you want? I'll pay 6 months in advance. Okay, so, but this is, think about it, it requires some amount of bravery, leadership, etc. to do this, right? So this is putting yourself in front, not sort of saying, okay, why don't you guys go, right? Collect money and come, right? So I think there are interesting. So any other traits that you guys saw in Phnom Penh utility? Any other key observations that you wanted to make? Okay, so if not, we'll stop that there. So clearly it's possible for the public sector, provided you have good leadership and autonomy and etc., to deliver good quality services. So it's not as if the public sector cannot deliver services, right, or cannot enable the private sector to deliver services. The public sector is trying, but there's also a way in which the public sector can achieve their goal, right? And one way in which the private sector can do this is to possibly think about a series of ideas that come under this broad umbrella of new public management, right? So which is the group that's going to present? New public management. Okay, so Jaikishan, why don't you come and talk to us about new public management, and then in that context we'll sort of wrap up and talk about how new public management might help the public sector deliver infrastructure projects better.